Athletics Can't Wait Jets podcast, your nonstop shop for all things Jets. Now here are your hosts, Tim McMaster and Connor Hughes. Listen safely.
Can't wait.
Big show for you today, and I mean big, as in offensive line big. Big guest for you today. Duke Manyweather is going to join us a little bit later on the show. Duke, of course, Mekhi Becton's trainer. You don't want to miss that interview. Tim McMaster here along with Connor Hughes and Marissa Morris. Please subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts and give a 5-star review on Apple as well. Also, you still have some time to take advantage of the best deal of the year here at The Athletic, $1 per month, but you need to be fast. The Black Friday deal runs out at midnight on Friday. You can get it. Go to theathletic.com/the Can't Wait podcast. Connor, are you excited for this interview coming up later?
I am, yeah, because I want to figure out what the hell Duke did to Mekhi Becton. I mean, this guy's having like a season like I've never heard or seen before. You know, occasionally you do have offensive linemen that begin a season and basically just kick off their NFL careers and they hit the ground running. You know, Quentin Nelson was one of those guys where there was just no holdback. But a lot of times there is an acclimation period. You know, when you're in college, very rarely are you going up against players like the Bosa brothers every other week. And seemingly every team but the Jets has an elite level edge rusher. And every Sunday, that elite level edge rusher wants to try his hand at getting by the mountain that is Mekhi Becton. And every single lineman that tries to get by Becton can't. Like we saw with Bosa with the Chargers, where he's on one side, has a go at Mekhi Becton, says, I'm done with that. I'm going to go rush against Fant. So I'm kind of curious because Becton was a guy that was considered a little bit of a developmental project, somebody that was going to take some time to learn to play with his size, his athleticism, his speed, his strength. And there has been no acclimation period. This is a guy who's I think if I'm not mistaken, he's the leading Pro Bowl vote getter for offensive tackles, which is obviously big amongst fan voters. He's a guy who, if he's already leading, he's probably going to be in the Pro Bowl. He's earned rave reviews from teammates, from the coaching staff, from everything. And he credits a lot of what he's been able to do so early in his career to Duke. So I'm kind of curious what Duke has seen from him, what he's worked on, and what he plans on working with him this offseason. And just how big he can get in terms of talent-wise, not necessarily size-wise. He's probably done growing. I think he's going to top out at 6'7". But the other thing it'll be interesting to talk to Duke about as well is he also trains Cameron Clark, the other lineman that the Jets drafted, who we haven't seen on the field yet, and just trying to get a little scouting report on him as well. So that's going to be fun. I think it's coming around like 7:30, right? Is when we're going to chat with him.
Yeah, if you're tuning in live and in the chat as well, get some questions in. If we run out of stuff to talk about, we'll get some of your questions into to Duke as well. One of the silver linings of what has been one of the darkest seasons in Jets history. We have a lot to get to before that, though. Duke will be on, like you said, around 7:30 as we record this live on YouTube. We're also going to talk a little bit about, we may get to the Raiders. I'm not sure we're going to get to the Raiders. Maybe we kind of bail on the games at this point and talk about other stuff. But one thing we have to talk about, Connor, is Adam Gase today. He spoke about Sam Darnold. He spoke about his failures with Sam Darnold. Marissa, do we have that audio?
We do.
I came here to help him develop his career, and we haven't been able to do that. You know, that's why every game is so important. Keep trying to help him grow, keep trying to help him, develop and see things the way that he needs to see them and play the way that I've seen him play in certain games. At the same time, that's what's frustrating sometimes about the quarterback position is you do need 10 other guys to do their job as well. It's just like when he throws one of those really good balls and, we have a drop, that's frustrating because it doesn't seem like a big deal, but for us right now, it's like one little thing and it stops a drive and we got a punt. Like those things, it's like the momentum shift. It's some carrying throughout the game. We need to do things well, around him, but at the same time, it's on me to get him to play better than what he's played. Right so far, I haven't done a good enough job.
Connor, I have some thoughts, but since you asked the question that led to that great answer from Adam Gase today, I'll let you start. Were you surprised with you always say Adam Gase is honest. He certainly was there. Were you surprised with how honest he was in that answer about pretty much admitting failure to a degree here almost 2 seasons in?
Yeah, I think it was, because Kaz was actually the one that teed it up because he started talking about Brian Costello was the one who kind of teed it up because he started talking about Sam Darnold and this season not really being what he wants. And I realized, I don't think Adam's been asked. Like, look, I remember during that Jets coaching search in 2017-18, and when they hired Adam Gase 2 years ago, I remember during that coaching search, the Jets kind of kept saying like, oh, we're looking for the right coach. We're looking for the right coach. We're looking for the perfect head coach, yada, yada. But it was always with the right guy for Sam Darnold and the right guy to get Sam Darnold to the next level. I mean, Adam Gase, make no mistakes about it. The Jets hired him because they believed he could be the coach that would take Sam Darnold from the guy who threw 6 touchdowns, 1 pick, and had almost 100 quarterback rating the final 4 games of his rookie year to Deshaun Watson, Pat Mahomes, Jared Goff, these upper echelon of quarterbacks. They wanted to find the coach that was going to take Darnold to that next level. And that's why they were interviewing Cliff Kingsbury. That's why they were interviewing Adam Gase. That's why they were interviewing LaFleur, the guy who went and signed with the Packers. I mean, they wanted that offensive-minded guy, Mike McCarthy, the offensive-minded guy to get them to the next level. And they hired Adam Gase because they believed he was that guy. And you look at Sam now, and while he improved in most statistical categories last year, he didn't take the jump last year. And now this season, he's regressed in basically every way imaginable. He's completing under 60% of his passes. He's got 3 touchdowns and 8 interceptions this year. He's got a quarterback rating in the 60s. He hasn't thrown a touchdown pass since September. And I know he's missed a ton of time, but still, what quarterbacks go 4 full starts without throwing a touchdown? He's thrown for under 200 yards. I think it's in 5 of 7 starts. I mean, this is ridiculous how far back he's gone when he looked like a franchise quarterback 2 years ago. I mean, Sam Darnold as a rookie was playing better than Sam Darnold is now. And I think when Gase answered that question, I expected him to be serious, or not serious. I'm sorry. I expected him to answer the question honestly, but I think I expected more excuses than what he said. I mean, I expected kind of more of like well, he just got back from the shoulder, or, oh, well, he had mono last year, or more that I expected more of that. And instead, that was probably about as honest as we've ever heard Adam be. And he legitimately, basically, I mean, I shouldn't even say basically, he came out and said he failed in that he realizes, basically, he said, I was hired to make Sam Darnold franchise quarterback, and I haven't done that. And I was hired to take this guy to the next level, and I haven't done that. And Sam Darnold, under me, has gotten worse. He's regressed. He is worse now than he was under Todd Bowles and Jeremy Bates. And I don't really know why. I'm trying to get it better, but it's true. I failed. And I think that what that was and what that symbolized in a way was realization setting in across this Jets franchise. And it starts with the top, with owner Christopher Johnson, who's going to pull the plug on Adam Gase after this year, with Joe Douglas, who realizes that he's got his work cut out for him, with Adam Gase, who realizes that he has not done the job that he was hired to do and his time is coming to an end. And eventually with Sam Darnold, who's going to realize that his Jets career and the Sam Darnold era of Jets football is coming to an end. And this was a wholesale change. And I think that to simply blame all of Sam Darnold's regression on Adam Gase is lazy. I think it's naive to do that, because this isn't all on Adam Gase. I mean, it is a large portion of it. I mean, Sam not getting any better is on Adam Gase, but this was a Jets franchise failing Sam, as we've said, and Adam Gase is a big piece of that. I mean, Gase wasn't obviously the one that ignored the offensive line the first 2 years with Mike McCagnon drafting. He wasn't the one who never went out there and got playmakers for him. I mean, he wasn't that guy. He's never had control of the 53-man roster, absent that like 1 month stretch where he was the interim GM and he traded Darren Lee. I mean, he's never had that. So this isn't all on Adam Gase, but this was also the very first time that we've heard Adam Gase accept blame as far as like, yeah, I'm one of the people that failed this kid. I was supposed to get him to the next level and I didn't.
Yeah, and when Adam Gase gets fired at the end of the year, the number one reason he's going to get fired is because of Sam Darnold, more than likely. The one thing that you said he didn't really make excuses. He did throw that one line in there about, when guys drop passes on third down.
I keep saying that.
Like he basically said like that. I mean, that's a thing, guys drop passes, but to be perfectly honest, I don't remember that happening that much other than Chris Herndon this year. Yeah. There hasn't been a lot of drop passes. So to throw that excuse in there now was was kind of silly. But for the most part, he took the blame. Hey, he said it, and it seems like there's just a realization there that the end is drawing near. It's go ahead.
Yeah, no, I like, honestly, I don't fault him, and I don't necessarily fault him when he does provide those excuses, because I rather hear that, because it kind of like, it does provide some kind of information as far as what he's actually thinking and how the actual structure of this team works. It's one of those reasons where, like, you ask a player why he's struggling, every player, he's never going to say, except for Mo Wilkerson that one time where he came out, he goes, yeah, my foot's broken. They're never going to say, like, I'm hurt, I don't feel well, I'm not doing the job, I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with that. Like, no player's going to do it, because they don't want to make excuses, because they're programmed to be these players that are just warriors and no, like, if something's wrong, tell us what's wrong. Let's get the information. Let's figure out what's wrong. And with Adam, I think with him saying that, I don't always fault it, because he's constantly the guy that provides, like, the reasoning. Like, he's basically saying, we haven't had the playmakers to do it. I've never had the roster that I felt was capable of winning these games. And now I think the one part where he's actually probably hitting, like, coming back down to earth, is that this was the week where you had Perryman and you had Mims and you had Crowder and you had everyone, and you still dealt with all those problems, and you still dealt with all those issues, and you still dealt with all of this plague that is killing the Jets. I mean, this is like, you still dealt with it all, and Sam still played poorly, despite the fact Joe Flacco had success with that same group. So I don't mind him giving those reasons. I don't mind him saying, this is why we're struggling, this is why we're hurting, this is why this is wrong, and this is I'm fine with all that. It was just more, I think, the way when he answered that question, and he really went into detail on that question, the way that I took it, honestly, was that this is a guy that just realizes the end is near, that there is no more hope in Adam Gase's mind that he can save his job. There is no more, I think I can do this. We went out, we run the table, I'll be back next year. There is no more, Sam is going to be this team's franchise quarterback, I know it. None of that is there anymore. What is there is a coach that realizes he's got 5 weeks left, and then he's gone. He's coaching a quarterback that has 5 weeks left, and then he is gone. And that when this Jets team eventually turns this around, it's not going to be with Adam Gase on the sideline. It's going to be Eric Bieniemy. It's going to be Harbaugh. It's going to be Doug Peterson. It's going to be somebody else out there on that sideline. When this team is making a playoff run and potentially getting into the playoffs, it's not going to be with Sam Darnold under center. It's going to be Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields. And all of this money that Joe Douglas has worked so hard to accumulate, it's going to be used to benefit the next coach and the next quarterback. And all these draft picks, the next coach and the next quarterback. And I think Adam Gase has finally just come to the reality of it and accepted it, that this is kind of over. And now what you're hearing is the honesty and the accountability to be able to say, like I said, he was hired to make Sam Darnold franchise quarterback. Sam Darnold is now going to be gone 4 years after the Jets draft him.
All right. Well, Duke is actually ready to go. So we're going to take a short break, and then we'll get to Duke Manyweather, trainer for Mekhi Becton. Marissa?
The gyms may not be full, but there's definitely no shortage of madness this college basketball season. For us fans, the college basketball powers have gifted us this top-tier matchup between two powerhouses. This weekend, Gonzaga and Baylor will be going toe-to-toe for what could be the nation's top ranking. DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is bringing you closer to the action with these can't-miss offers. DraftKings Sportsbook is giving all college basketball fans who sign up now the chance to win $100 when betting on either Gonzaga or Baylor to win this clash of titans. Plus, you'll get a deposit bonus up to $1,000 when signing up using the promo code QUICK. DraftKings Sportsbook has endless ways for you to bet. From live betting to betting on your favorite players, they do it all. DraftKings is safe, reliable, and secure, making it easy for you to deposit and withdraw your money at your convenience. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code QUICK when you sign up to get your shot to turn $1 into $100 when betting on either Gonzaga or Baylor to win. That's right, bet $1 to win $100. Use promo code QUICK during sign up to take advantage of these great offers. For a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, New Jersey only. Bonus comprised of a first deposit bonus. Deposit bonus requires 25 times playthrough. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
All right, time to move on to our special guest on this edition of the Can't Wait podcast, Duke Manyweather. His company is OL Masterminds. He deals with some of the best offensive linemen in the game of football, including Jets rookie Mekhi Becton. Duke, thanks so much for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate it. I'm excited being on, and we've been trying to do this now for a couple of weeks. So thanks again.
Yeah, we're all synced up now. So we have plenty of questions, obviously, about Mekhi. But first of all, I want to hear about how you got to this point where you have this business where you're basically training the best offensive linemen in the world. How did you kind of climb the ranks to get to this point where you've made this business for yourself?
That's a great question, and I love to answer it because I get it posed to me all the time. And it's really been a process. So what people are seeing now is 10 years of deliberate practice, maybe over 10 years to be exact. I started off as a college offensive lineman, and I kind of had a knack for just being a coach, like a player's coach on the field. For me, that's what I had to rely on. I had to rely on how hard I trained. I had to rely on how hard I worked in the weight room, the physical aspect of it, because I was an undersized offensive lineman at 6 foot, and I was 300 pounds. So I didn't have the elite length and athleticism that other people did, but I was able to be strong. I was able to be very knowledgeable. My mental processing and all those type of things were always on point, and my technique was dialed in. That really set me up on the trajectory to get into coaching right away. So I was fortunate enough to have a brief stint in the Arena Football League, and it was something that really stuck out to me, and I'll never forget it. My offensive line coach, when they released me, Jim Beverly, he said, "You know what? I'm going to tell you something that you probably heard your entire football career. You're a good football player, but you're fighting genetics." He goes, "But," he goes, "you've got a natural knack to lead people." He goes, "and still teach people how to get things done." He goes, "You need to pursue that." Just so happened before that, before I signed with the Arkansas Twisters and Arena Football League, what ended up happening was I had a college program, College of the Redwoods, offer me an offensive line and run game coordinator position. And I didn't take the position right off because I had this grand idea that I was going to play arena football and my football career was going to be, I don't know what I thought. I was living in a delusional world, though, really, is what it was. But after I got released, the next day, nobody knew I had got released yet either. I mean, like this was in 2009, or maybe even 2008. The social media wasn't as relevant where, nobody cares about arena football like that. But just so happened, Coach Dave Banducci called me the next day and said, "Hey, I know you're playing right now, but we've still got that O-line job and run game coordinator position open for you. I know you're a young guy, but if you want it, it's yours. We like what you're doing." I said, "Coach, perfect time. I just got cut. Like, I want the job." And that was the best thing that ever happened to me. I was not even a year out of college, and I had my own offensive line room. I was in charge of strength and conditioning. I was also in charge of, coordinating the run game and the protections and all those type of things. So there was an extreme amount of pressure that was put on me, but an extreme amount of learning that I did, even from the veteran coaches. So that took me into, at that time, I was pulling double duty. I was an assistant strength and conditioning coach at my alma mater, Humboldt State University, underneath the legendary Drew Peterson. Drew has just been a phenomenal mentor to me, taught me a lot about the business of strength and conditioning, training, and people, really. So I was pulling double duty. At 6 a.m. in the morning, I'd be in the weight room at Humboldt State. I would drive 30 minutes south down to Eureka, California, and pull my duty for, College of the Redwoods, being their offensive line coach and run game coordinator. I did that for 3 years. I was then given the opportunity to take the defensive line coaching job at Humboldt State, my alma mater. So I was pulling double duty there. I would do strength and conditioning and then also be the D-line coach. So being the D-line coach really got me into a different mind space in terms of, I knew as an offensive lineman, as an offensive line coach, the grand scheme of what we were trying to accomplish. So it allowed me to talk to the defensive lineman that I was coaching and training. Hey, this is what they're trying to do to you. This is how we're going to counter it. So it was a different perspective. But then when I got back to the other side of the ball, it gave me a whole new world because I knew what D linemen were looking at. I knew what, the different defenses and the coverages meant in terms of where gap responsibilities were. And so it allowed me to be just a touch more cerebral with how I was coaching and training guys on the offensive side of the ball when I went back. I started a website named Beyond the Combine. And Beyond the Combine was really cool because it was the only website that specifically scouted offense and defensive linemen. And so that's all I did is I scouted offensive and defensive alignment, and I did it from my perspective. I did it from my perspective of traits, characteristics of technique, and then what I thought their imbalances and capacity for development was. And I did it like more in terms of movement and the body structure and the mechanical advantage and all those type of things. That garnished the attention of some people. I ended up taking a job down in Arizona working at O-Line Performance with Charles Bentley. I was down there for a couple of years, his director of player personnel and lead performance coach. That didn't work out for me. We went our separate ways, and then took a couple of consulting jobs within the NFL. And then I started my own business. I always knew I had a knack, and I knew what my passion was. Every morning I woke up, I knew what was going to fulfill me. And that was really advancing the offensive line position. And so I never stopped learning. I still to this day always keep learning, and it's really put me on the trajectory to do what I do now. And I was fortunate enough to have players trust me early on in their career. Guys like Mitchell Schwartz and Jeff Schwartz and Jeff Allen and Lane Johnson, Brian Winters, they used to play for the Jets, and Jeremy Parnell that played for the Cowboys and the Jacksonville Jaguars, Ronald Leary and Teron Armstead. And it just continued to grow, word of mouth. And not so much word of mouth, but what we end up seeing is the product and the time that I put into these guys. And, at the end of the day, the NFL and offensive line is about production. And the guys were going out there staying healthy and producing. And so that's what really has garnished the attention of, I think that a lot of people are starting to see now with the O-line masterminds and a lot of the stuff that we're doing that's become a little bit more mainstream.
Duke, I think right after Mekhi had been drafted, I remember talking to him like this now because of the world we're living in. We were talking to him via Zoom, and you were one of the first people that he shouted out. We were asking him about his weight. We were asking about different questions. He goes, "No, Duke's got me right. Duke has me right. Duke has me right." So when did Mekhi actually get in contact with you? How did you find him? How did you guys start working together? And what were those initial interactions like, and how did you guys come together?
Yeah, I'm really good friends with Mekhi's former college offensive line coach, Dwayne Ledford. Me and him are really good friends, and we would text all the time. We would just talk life, talk football. And I said, I talked to him when he got the job at Louisville. I said, the 73 kid looks like he can be pretty special. And he said, he had a good spring, let's see what happens. First game rolled around. I said, man, the 73 kid looks pretty good, man. We'll see what happens. The third game, I'll never forget. The third game, I got a text message. And I think it was again, I can't remember who the game was against, but he texted me, he said, we got a monster on our hands. And he was right. And from that moment on, I think, I kind of was telling Dwayne kind of what I saw out of him, some areas that we needed to improve and correct. But Mekhi was a little farther ahead in terms of technique-wise than people gave him credit for. I think that was a lazy evaluation and a lazy narrative that a lot of people were putting out there during the draft time. But to be honest with you, now that I think about it, today is December 3rd, 2020, and me and Mekhi started working on December 3rd, 2019. He didn't play in his bowl game last year, and so he was down in Dallas, and shit, man, he never left. He never left, just kind of how the world, kind of came to a screeching halt. But we worked all the way through, man. And, I think just the connection with Dwayne Ledford, I think at that point, it was very clear that, that relationship kind of fostered and catapulted. It didn't matter who Mekhi was going to end up signing with, that he wanted to come out here to Dallas and be a part of what we were doing, that he entrusted that we would have his career and, be able to elevate his game to make that transition to be, not just a good football player, but to be one of the best ever potentially.
What were your initial impressions of him when he first showed up? You actually you've known him through Louisville now, but now you're actually working with him. Now you're trying to help him get better. I mean, what were your first impressions? I know everyone at the Jets when Adam Gase, Frank Pollock, I mean, literally everyone talks about this kid. They say he's big, but aside from that, I mean, you're working with offensive linemen, you see big a lot. But what were your first takeaways from him?
He was different. He was different. And that's what I kept trying to tell everybody is that, Mekhi is big, but people want to compare him to Trent Brown. He's not Trent Brown. People want to compare him to, I think Greg Robinson and some other.
Yeah.
He wasn't. He was different. What you saw with Mekhi was a 6'8", almost powered forward looking type body that happened to be 365 pounds. And he had a ton of muscle on him. He was lean for being 365. You look at him even in his jersey now, you're like, oh, he's a big guy. But like in regular street clothes, you can't tell really like how lean he is until you get him in like tight workout clothes and you're like, oh man, this dude put together pretty well. So the impression with him was like, man, this dude looks like that golden era offensive tackle, like your Jonathan Ogden and your Orlando Pacers. But then he moved like your Lane Johnson, your David Bakhtiari, your Teron Armstead. And when we first started working with him, we noticed that one, he asked a ton of questions. Two, he was always willing to take criticism early on. And I mean, making the transition from how he trained to what we were doing down here was difficult for him because he had the high ankle sprain that he was working through. He had some imbalances that created. So he needed to get back and get healthy first. Dealing with that last season that he played at Louisville, and then he made that transition. So as we went through the combine process, it was about 4 weeks in where we're like, ooh, all right, so we kind of knew, but like now we know. And then what I noticed was that not only did we keep getting better in terms of movement quality and technique, but then all the weight room stuff started going this way. All the running stuff was like ridiculous. The KPIs in terms of the true power index and some of the stuff that we were doing were ridiculous. Some of the force plates were ridiculous in terms of what he was registering. Some of the weight distribution, symmetrical and asymmetrical, has started to balance back out. And those are all key performance indicators of somebody that's coming into balance and really starting to peak and come into their own for what we were trying to prepare him for. So around 4 or 5 weeks, we knew, ooh, we have something special here. Sure enough, it's kind of what you saw at the combine, a special performance. And I still think we left some meat on the bone there.
We have, just so you know, we have a chat that goes on while we're doing this, and you have completely won over Jets fans, and they'd like you to be the O-line coach next year if you're available.
Here's the thing. I know Frank Pollock. Frank Pollock is a really good coach. So don't get clouded with everything that's going on right now, Jets fans. I can tell you this. There's some people that have played under Frank in the past at various teams that have collectively and separately told me that they wish they were still playing with him, playing for him. And there's some really good players that have told me that, I'm talking about some really good players that have told me that just as recently as a couple of weeks ago. So don't let that skew you. I can't sit here and take credit for Mekhi and what he's doing. I mean, at the end of the day, Frank Pollock and Derek Frazier are still doing a tremendous job developing that young man every day in the building.
You mentioned the leanness of him, and I was going to get to one of the questions that actually came in the chat was, this one's from Dan Poffin, but he said, do you think he can play a long career, his whole career at his current weight, or do you think he does need to drop 10, 15 pounds at some point along the way?
That's a great question. And again, like I said, Mekhi is different. He's an outlier. You can't put him in a box. With that being said, though, I'm a firm believer that big guys have to do any and everything possible to take care of their body. And a lot of times that means offloading of the joints, especially the feet. So the focus is always going to be to get him in his leanest state. All right. The body is meant to perform optimally in its leanest state. So for Mekhi, it's really figuring out what that number is. in essence with his body fat. I mean, because at the combine, he was 363 pounds and he was at 17% body fat. And I mean, it's kind of hard to say, all right, you need to lose weight. It comes a point when you chase a scale weight number, what ends up happening is performance starts to decrease. Now, right now, with the season going on, who knows where he's at? I'm not in the building with him. I can't say where he's at. But I know as soon as he gets here, the focus is going to be to make sure that we're continuing doing any and everything that we need to get leaner. That way he's keeping that performance, at a high level. And I think there's still a lot of room for improvement in things that I see.
You kind of mentioned where you were talking about how, he's got Ogden size, but then he's also got the athleticism kind of a Lane Johnson. So when you have someone who is that big, that strong, that athletic, and can run the way he does, is he almost like an alien type thing where you're looking at a guy that
he's an outlier. And that's why I keep saying, like, people, you can't sit here and say, oh, well, what about this? There has been, you can't name anybody, not even Ogden, all those guys. You can't name none of those guys that possess what you're seeing out of 77. And I'm talking about the combination of that size, length, but then all the other traits that he has. There's nobody in the game right now that possesses that. There's absolutely nobody. And so that's important to realize for me as somebody that's going to be important and key to his development, is that we got to find out what the exact recipe is. Because we've got all the ingredients, all right? And so with myself and Mekhi and the Jets, we're all co-chefs here, okay? We've got the ingredients. Now we need to find out what the recipe is to make it extremely consistent. Okay. Once we make that recipe extremely consistent, what normally happens with restaurants when they do that, they can do what? Franchise. So That's the goal. That's the goal, is we've got all these ingredients. All right. We're all coach chefs. We need to find out what that recipe is that's going to breed consistency. And then we can franchise at that point, because at that point, that's when we're bringing it all together. And that's when we know what works for him. One of the big things my big thing is, I try to make everything so individualized to these players. Mm-hmm. And we find out what their strong suits are, and we build out from their strong suits. So many people talk about, we want to go and we want to improve weaknesses. Okay, but here's the thing, is you can pick out some areas of improvement in Mekhi's game, but those aren't weaknesses, because strength and offensive line is a strength from him. Football, offensive line specifically is a strength from Mekhi. So there's areas of his game, there's areas of everybody's game that we can work towards. But to me, you got to funnel in on those strength zones and let those strength zones start to build around and enhance what those areas of improvement are, So that's the key thing when we're starting to develop guys, is to figure out how can we take what they do really, really well and what makes them unique and what makes them special, that enhances with an area for improvement. And so that's what's going to be another focus this offseason.
Yeah, I guess building on that a little bit, I mean, last year you're getting him ready for the combine. You're getting ready to test. Well, now that he's in the league, I mean, what is that area that you see where you're like, all right, this offseason, we want to work on this with Mekhi. We want to get him to this point. What is that? Is there something specific where you're like, all right, this is going to be the point of emphasis?
I've got a list of things. And if you ever get a chance to talk to him, you could ask him about the text messages that I send him, typically in game, that he sees as soon as he gets to his locker. And I'm hard on him. I mean, probably the reason why he raves about me is probably because most days he wanted to kill me from December to August, to be honest with you. But that's most guys. I mean, like, we work hard. It's a competitive environment, especially with the type of guys we have around. But I'm going to push these guys hard. And I always because these guys, there's workouts where I'll hop in and do it with them. So it's not like I'm barking out orders. They know that if I'm telling them something, it's particularly for their best interest, and that I'm not going to tell them nothing that I can't do. And so I think that that lends a level of credibility to them too when things get extremely tough and they see me doing them. They're like, oh shit. Well, if this dude's doing it, then I gotta hop in. So I think that's going to be an area. I think also just the overall approach. You got to realize Mekhi is really young as well. He's 21 years old, so there's still areas that which when he turns into a man that are going to enhance his game. Because one thing that we try to do here in Dallas with OL Masterminds and everything that we do with our development program is we try to build out leaders, build out men, and that typically takes care of the football player. The football player is easy after you build out the leader and the man. Being a beacon of leaders into their building, into their O-line rooms, being a man of the community, being a man amongst family, doing the noble things. Once you do that, that's going to set you on the trajectory to take your development and your craft and all that type of stuff serious.
So, you talk to him about technique, you talk to him about strength, you go through all that work with him. Then he gets into this season and it's a struggle for the team, right? They're 0-11. Is that something that you talk to Mekhi about too? Just
all
the tough stuff like that?
All the time. So I'm really big into the mental performance part. We've got a high performance psychologist, sports performance psychologist, let's say Gary Frazier, that works with us. So he's like my personal guy. And he also works with a lot of the guys. But when he's not working hands-on with a guy, he'll give me some tidbits that I can relay. And he's got a pretty good pulse of, current events and kind of the league. And so he's always watching things. And we're watching everything from body language to social media to just trying to really figure it out, putting a piece to the puzzle, being investigators, being detectives. That way we can know how to approach a person and get them to listen. Because if you don't approach a person right, you catch them at the wrong time, they're going to automatically shut you out. So in order to really weigh in and really give guys the feedback that they need to stay focused, especially in a difficult time now, is I told Mekhi just recently, I said, in times of adversity, in times of displacement, you've got to adapt, you got to improvise, and you got to stay looking forward. All right. A lot of times when you start to lose control, you try to overcorrect against the skid and you spin out of control. So in this type of day and age, with everything that's going on in society, what's going on with the Jets, you got to go with the skid and understand you got to accelerate through it. That way you're always looking forward. So we always try to make sure we're giving him the mental tools to kind of deal with what's going on right now, because it's not easy showing up and losing no matter what. And at the end of the day, you have to take an approach of, I've got to do my job to the best of my ability and not worry about anything else. It sounds easy, but I can understand how it's difficult. I've been on a losing team before, but one of the things that I did and I've suggested is that find something to get better at every single day. Pick a part of your game that you want to improve on that wasn't so clean or crisp in practice the day before, and you take that in. You start to do that every day over the course of a week and over the course of a season, you've gotten a lot better. So never shun down an opportunity to get better, and never let the negatives magnify to the point where it's stopping you from from gaining progress.
Just two more quick ones for you, Duke. The last one on Mekhi is you've now seen him. You've worked with him pre-combine. You're going to work with him after this season. You've seen what he's been able to do his rookie year. I mean, what is this kid's ceiling? Does he have the ability to be the best in the league?
Yeah, absolutely. We kind of had that conversation right before he left for training camp. We said, hey, listen, man, this year's going to be different, off-season program, which actually probably worked out really well for him because he was able to be around guys like Teron Armstead and, Ron Leary and some of those veteran players that really got him mentally prepared for what an NFL season was going to be like. And that's what's important too, is that when people talk about, oh, he's pro ready, a lot of guys could physically be pro ready, but if you don't know what to expect in the mental aspect, then you can be swimming real fast. So that's a cool thing that, he got to experience from December until almost August. And then with it culminating with O-Line Mastermind Seminar, when you got 60 guys sharing best practices. But to make a long story short, I think that you've got a guy that if he stays healthy and he continues to progress, his trajectory of how good he can be very, very special. One of the best of all times. Because as I said pre-draft, as I said at the beginning of this show, he's different. The things that he possesses are special. But with that type of potential, that potential has to be worked towards being realized. And so it's still a lot of work left. As I gave you the analogy, we've got all the ingredients. Now we've got to find that recipe for consistency so that we can franchise it. And that's really what's going to be the key for him moving forward.
Last one for you, Duke, is the other Jet that you're working with is Cameron Clark, a kid the Jets drafted out of Charlotte. Hasn't seen the field yet. Someone the Jets are kind of taking a little bit of their time with. I think the injury that he suffered in camp probably put him back a little bit, behind the 8-ball. But you've seen him more than any of us have because there was no preseason. There was a condensed training camp, and he's been banged up. So what do you think of Cameron Clark? What might the Jets have there? And I think they drafted him in the 4th round.
Cam Clark is going to be a guy that's going to be able to play all 5 positions across the board. He's tough. He's strong. He's smart as hell. Very cerebral. Takes his craft very serious. He's a guy that's not going to make a mistake over and over again. You're going to have to correct it once, maybe give him a tweak twice, and he's going to continue to build upon that and put together good reps. Coming from Charlotte, he was physically dominating at left tackle. Probably some of the best tape I've seen against Clemson. Him and Mekhi probably had some of the best film against Clemson I've ever seen in terms of their physical dominance. So Cam is a guy that is a true pro in terms of how he's going to approach his development. And I'm excited to see him. Eventually, I noticed that he has been suited up the past couple of weeks. So you got to figure that he's getting close to maybe making an appearance if need be. But I definitely could see him playing either guard spot, hopping in a tackle spot, and eventually, maybe even at center. He's got these huge ass hands, 11.5-inch hands, and just the thing that I love about Cam is he always had so many great questions that he wanted answered. And then not only when you answered them, you saw him immediately almost apply them. And then things in which you answered and gave him a suggestion, he would take it in, he would process it, and then you could see him still live out that answer, but then tweak it and make it his own. That's a really cool thing. That's a guy that is going to go very far in the business with doing that. So I'm excited about Cam and what his potential could be as well.
Great stuff, Duke. It's obvious that Mekhi is in good hands with you handling the training in the off season, and keep up the good work with OL Masterminds and everything that you're doing.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me. Marissa, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate all you reaching out to me and finally aligning on this. I know, like, as I said, we tried to get this done. Last week was a little crazy with the holiday, and this week my front end was very loaded, but much appreciated. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for tuning in, man. I appreciate it.
No problem.
All right. That's Duke Manyweather. His company is OL Masterminds, as you can see behind him if you're watching on YouTube. But Connor, just awesome stuff from him. And it was great to hear really the full, I guess, anniversary story, because it was a year ago, basically today, that it all started between him and Mekhi Becton. But taking us through the whole process of getting up to the draft and the combine and what he saw from him. And I mean, you can see why guys love working with Duke. Mm-hmm. He's just, the energy is there, and it's just great.
Well, I think it was pretty fascinating to watch, or I should say, not say watch, but listen to him talk about how he was getting Mekhi ready mentally, as well as physically and all that. He wanted to make sure that he was ready for what the NFL game was going to be like. He was going to be ready for what the NFL game was going to feel like. And it wasn't necessarily about having the physical tools, because the moment that Mekhi Becton stepped on a football field, college or NFL, he was going to be one of the biggest. He was going to be one of the strongest. And he was going to be one of the most athletic pound for pound guys on that field. But that didn't mean anything if he wasn't mentally ready. And listening to what Duke talked now about what he did for Mekhi this offseason, it kind of goes hand in hand when we were talking to Adam Gase during training camp. We'd ask him about Becton because we'd see Becton make this insane play where in camp he'd get to the second level and pancake Neville Hewitt, or he'd get out there and be running with Marcus May down the field, pushing him out of bounds. And you had corners taking dives because they didn't want to get hit by him in practice. And Gase said they kept giving more to Mekhi. They kept putting more on Mekhi's plate. They kept trying to do all these different things with him and just throw more and more at him. And at no point was he ever swimming. And I remember hearing that quote from Gase, that this is a guy that just is not swimming. He's being put so much on his plate and he's just taking it all in stride and nothing is ever too much for him. And now you're seeing why, because in the off season, he goes back, probably takes a little bit of time off, and then he's immediately in the lab with Duke and he's getting him ready. And the fact that he's been able to do this with Mekhi to this point, it makes you feel pretty good about when Cameron Clark gets a chance to get in there, that the Jets might have something there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Good stuff from Duke. Let's move on because we have to make our picks. And Connor, things are falling apart for you. Another goose egg last week. You're in last place in these picks. You're under 500 now for the year. You're losing money for the season on these picks.
It's great, guys.
It's not good.
I started 9-1 too. Like that's
Who
the
says
amazing part.
2020's been bad? Who says 2020's been bad? Connor's in last place. What more could we ask for?
I should probably stop this whole like doing my picks in the middle of the show and being like, "That's how
I make my picks in the middle of the show too."
Do you really?
Yes, all the time. I make my picks like 30 seconds before we start. So don't like pull that like, "Oh well, I'm making my picks late. That's why they're not good."
Yeah, just you just got to bet against me now. That's where we are. That's where we're at. You guys go first. I'm gonna
right,
look.
You're gonna actually make your picks now. Well, I was gonna say last week. I mean, we've talked week after week about the Seahawks bandwagon and riding the Seahawks this season and how good they've been. And me and Marissa went with the Seahawks last week for the win, and you avoided them. Got to get back on the Seahawks bandwagon. But
Connor and I did have a close one. That Chiefs game.
Yes, that's true.
We won by 3, and we had them at 3.5, so that was a little rough because
So
they were
Marissa went
blowing
2
out
and
the Bucks, and
Yeah.
that last second touchdown really hurt me from going 3-0.
Yeah, it would have been 3-0.
It made Connor go 0-3, so
it was
I
worth
like,
it, right?
Yeah.
So you'll take it? Yeah. Oh my God. I'm terrible. Just bet against me. I didn't even, what's funny is last week, I thought I was pretty confident I was going to go 3-0 last week because I literally didn't bet the games. I was like, I'm in such a rut. Right? I'm just not even going to touch these games. I'm just going to bet them, like put them in parent and not put my money on it and watch. This will be the week I go 3-0. Nope, went 0-3. So at least I saved myself some money.
Yeah, learned a lesson. All right, I'll go first then as you get your picks in. I'm going to take the Saints at Atlanta. I know we still kind of seeing what the Saints team is without Breeze. It's been good so far. -2.5. I'll take them on the road. Patriots pick'em, the rare pick'em game at the Chargers. I think the Patriots showed a little something last week with the win over the Cardinals that Connor was wrong with. I'm going to stick with the Patriots. I think they're going to, it's just Belichick, right? They're going to push this thing so they're at least in the hunt to squeak into the playoffs in week 17. And to get there, they need to win games like this. I think they do. And then finally, the Bills -1 at San Francisco. I'll take them. Marissa, go ahead.
Well, I'm going to go with the Saints -2.5 as well. So, I produced the Athletic Football Show, and we talked a lot about the Lions-Bears games this week, that there's a lot at stake on both sides of the ball.
Poor Robert Mays, by the way, with the Bears now.
Yeah. So this is the first game that the Lions are playing without Matt Patricia. That seems like forever ago he was fired, but they played that Thursday night Thanksgiving game. So I think the Lions are going to come out looking pretty good after this. So I'm going to go Lions +3 versus the Bears, and then it's rough for Carson Wentz and the Eagles these days, and playing the Packers this week. So Packers -8.
Is that what you got that line? That line's going up now. So that's everyone's on the Green Bay bandwagon, but I am going to follow your lead there. Is that I do love that Philadelphia Eagle team is reaching a jet light level of dysfunction.
Yeah.
The reports that came out from like NFL Network and ESPN about how we're going to see Jalen Hurts, right? Like Jalen Hurts is going to get the playing time.
And he came in on 2nd and 9. Like
had an offsides, right? Because the snap, that cadence was off, so somebody jumped. Then he completes a 6-yard pass.
And then they bring in Carson for the third down.
Yeah, on third down. Then he gets sacked. And then they end up putting the only other time we saw Jalen Hurts was when he came in to run the same play that the Eagles have run 36 times,
Yep,
which
with
is
Carson
like the read
still on the
option.
field. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like, what is going on? And then the going for it on 4th and 4 when you're down, 9 or 11 or whatever. I mean, watching that
There's
game,
been a lot of talk about their play calling too. So
yeah. And I'll tell you what, like I've been saying, I haven't watched too much Eagles football, but when I heard all this stuff about the Eagles might move on from Doug Peterson, it felt like such a rash reaction because this was a guy that, I mean, we can actually probably make a whole podcast about this next week.
Well, we got one. It's called Birds with Friends.
What? Where's that? Where do you listen to that podcast?
Yeah, where do you listen to
That's
that?
at a podcast network. Both Zach Herman and Joke Body.
Never heard of it.
Do the sort by viewers, then reverse it, and then you'll find Birds with Friends. So just we'll go with that one. But no, so we I think that like I was like, oh, just hire Doug Peterson, and that was my take, was like I mean, this is a guy who his first year as head coach didn't make the playoffs, then won a Super Bowl, was going to the NFC Championship game if Alshon Jeffrey didn't drop a pass. The next year, Carson Wentz gets hurt in like the first quarter against the Seahawks. They lose that game only by 9, I think it was, or 8, something like that. It was like a 1-possession game, I'm pretty sure. And now they're having one bad season. The Eagles are going to fire Doug Peterson. I was like, go out and get the guy. Like, he'd be perfect for the Jets. Watching that game, oh boy, there was some decision making.
The issue is they had a 2nd-round pick on Jalen Hurts. If you're gonna,
well, that's not Peterson.
If you're
that's Howie.
Right.
That's how.
Yeah, but if you're gonna take the guy in the 2nd round, you got to see what he can do. Like, it's not like you have just some backup. Like, he was
right, and he's such a
pick.
and they bring him in, and he's the athlete, right? That you can do different things with. He's not just a quarterback necessarily. They've done nothing.
Yeah, so I am going to take Green Bay. It lines up to -8.5. I'm going to take it at Marissa's line, which is -8, because I just think that I think Philly's a disaster right now, and it's getting ugly, and it's only going to get uglier. And that game's also at Lambeau, so it's probably going to be cold, and it's just Carson Wentz also does not strike me as a quarterback who handles criticism very well. He's not somebody who rises to the occasion, but I think he comes back down. So give me Green Bay -8. I like that line a lot. The other one, I'm always nervous with an East Coast team going West Coast. But the Bills are good, man. Oh. And no, it's Bills. No, I'm staying away from that one. That spread's way too thick, and I just don't like touching that. Anything over 10, unless it's the Jets, I don't want to touch that. But Bills -1 at the 49ers. I mean,
It's at Arizona. It's not.
Oh, right. Yeah. Not that it would matter because
they're playing the 49ers
there's no fans anyway.
in Arizona.
Yeah. For a second, I was like, wait, the Bills aren't playing the 40. Are you playing the Cardinals? No. So it doesn't matter to me. I mean, I like Josh Allen. I like that offense. I like that defense. I think the Bills can taste blood in the water with this, with the Patriots.
He's got to redeem himself for that last time he played there. That was the Hail Murray. So
yeah, Hail Murray. Yep. give me the Bills -1. I like them against San Francisco. I think San Francisco is starting to get a little healthier, but again, I don't trust that team right now. Although I think Shanahan is an unbelievable head coach. I think they're just so injury depleted that with a line that small, give me that one. And then the other team, which I think is an absolute catastrophic disaster, is the Dallas Cowboys. I don't care if they're home. I don't care if they're on the road. When you let Alex Smith put a whooping on you, I mean, the guy can't throw more than 10 yards and he's playing on one leg. Like, they're done. And the Ravens I would think they would have Lamar Jackson back. Give me the Ravens -7.5 against Dallas. I like that one. So Green Bay -8, all favorites. Green Bay -8, Buffalo -1, and then Baltimore -7.5.
All right, good stuff. One comment real quick from the chat that I just saw is you got to see what your 2nd round pick can do, unless it's Christian Hackenberg. Had to get that one in there. Good stuff from the chat.
You don't want to read the comment that says Marissa's just burying Connor today?
I did see that one. I saw them. I saw Marissa is Connor's daddy too. I saw that one in there. I was waiting for you to read that one. Marissa's Connor's daddy. Yeah, I like that one.
All right, that's going to do it for us. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks to Duke Manyweather for joining us. Great interview with him, kind of inside what's going on with Mekhi Becton, who looks like he's going to be an absolute beast for years to come on the left side of that offensive line. You still have time to get the best deal of the year here at The Athletic. Go to theathletic.com/the Can't Wait podcast. Just $1 per month. So $12 for the entire year. That runs out Friday, I think at midnight Eastern. So you're running out of time if you want to jump on that deal. Theathletic.com/the Can't Wait podcast. We will talk to you after the Raiders game. Yes, we managed to get through an hour-long podcast, and we didn't even talk about the game that's coming up on Sunday. Have a good night, everybody.